Hello, I am Chloe Wilson and I am an author. This is my book, my debut collection of short stories called Hold Your Fire, which has been recently published by Scribner Australia. Looking back on it, I think I would characterise the stories in the collection as being what you might call modern Gothic, or what I've started to call Plausible Gothic, by which I mean I'm taking themes and images that you would typically associate with Gothic works, such as monstrosity, the grotesque, ghosts and haunting, obsessiveness, jealousy, that sort of thing. And seeing what happens when you put them into not only modern context, but into a plausible range of behaviours. Seeing where those dark impulses go when people are still presenting themselves as normal people living normal lives. I can see retrospectively that I am really drawn to those dark themes in my work, that's what I gravitate towards. While I'm in the process of writing, I don't think about it in that way. I think of it more as trying to get at the truth of something, and as soon as you are focused on trying to say something true, you're going to start saying things that are uncomfortable or that expose certain power dynamics or shifts in status, because that's the nature of getting closer to the truth, I think. That there's this veneer of socially acceptable behaviour, and a lot of the time these are people aiming to live successful lives or to achieve a kind of social status, and they think that they would be not only successful people but good people, or at least that they'd be better than other people. But I think what the book exposes is how strange seemingly normal people can be. I'm going to read a story from the collection. It's called Exchange. Whenever anyone asked, she said that Billy had gone on an exchange. He had gone to Switzerland, she said. He was staying with a lovely host family, Hans and Helga Fischer, and their daughter, Marcia, who was Billy's age. The Fischers lived in Zurich. They went skiing on weekends. They had a large hound named Bruno, who was fond of her son. There was every chance that Billy and Marcia would share a tender and appropriate first love. She found a postcard of Zurich, its buildings iced with fresh snow, and stuck it on her fridge. As the weeks went by, she found herself thinking of Zurich while she was on the bus to see Billy. She'd picture the Fischer family rolling with their dog in the snow, carolling with their neighbours at Christmas, drinking mulled wine in front of a log fire. She'd think of them as she opened the fridge to find a single egg to boil for her dinner, and when she shrank and huddled her body under the cold sheets, trying to warm the bed. After a time, she began to envy her son, to envy the memories so clear in her mind of his exchange. She'd flick through them like a series of snapshots. Billy outside a historic church. Billy on skis, waving, his hands in thick red mittens. Billy grinning, young and pink-cheeked, Marcia's smiling face pressed into his shoulder. For me, it took a long time. So the oldest pieces in this collection are the flash fiction pieces, which some of them are more than 5 years old now. And that was really when I was transitioning to, I was always writing fiction, but when I was transitioning to writing fiction that I felt was hitting a note that felt true for me. And so gradually over time, the stories grew longer and more expansive, and that was a process that took several years. Yes, they have been published. I sent them out quite a lot, got a lot of rejections, and I was quite ambitious with some of the places that I sent them to, and had the experience of stories being rejected by smaller publications or smaller competitions, and then going on to be published in places that I was amazed to be accepted by. I was fortunate enough to win the Iowa Review Award in fiction and to have a story in Granta, which was just amazing to me to come up through the slush pile for publications like that. No, it's not. I have published 2 collections of poetry previously, The Mermaid Problem and Not Fox Nor Axe. So the first one in 2010 and then the other one in 2015. It's a really difficult question for me to answer because I've always written. Thinking about it, I've heard other authors interviewed and they've talked about the experience of reading a book or that made them want to write, or how they discovered that they wanted to be writers. And for me, I just think it was always there. I remember being a small child and I would copy out my books and I would make books. I would do things like have a really pretentious cover that said, I think I did, which I just stole from somewhere else, that said the treasury of poems, and then you'd open it and there'd be one scrappy piece of paper inside. But it's hard to know why I write because it's such a strong impulse, and it's been so present for my entire life. Well, it was interesting. I'm used to spending a lot of time by myself, and so in some ways, because my husband was working at home as well, I was less alone than I would typically be. And he was on Zoom a lot and has the kind of job where people have loud and raucous discussions. And I was at the dining table thinking, wow, I didn't realise how much I was living in silence before now. And also I was pregnant, so life was changing rapidly, but still managed to finish the collection and work on some new stories as well. So work got done, but it was a really different experience. Yeah, more or less, yes, I am. I wasn't for a really long time. I had other jobs in commercial publishing, and then I was teaching at a university, firstly while I was doing my PhD, and then for a long time casually after that, like a lot of writers do. But for the last couple of years, I've just been writing. My reading tastes were so free range when I was growing up. So there's a lot of classics and a lot of children's classics that I've never touched, but reading and loving Jane Eyre, even though it's a terrible cliche, but I just loved it so much. And then going into Year 12, studying literature, and it was different from studying English, where we didn't write essays, we had to write more of an exegesis style piece, and one of the assigned texts was the poems of Sylvia Plath, and so we were given a set of 10 poems and we had to not just know the poems, not just read them like you would read a book of fiction, but we had to, by the end I virtually knew them by heart, and so that really affected me and stayed with me, I think, not just because I loved the poems, although I did, but because I had to inhabit them for such a long time. And even now I'll be doing something and a line or a few lines from those poems will recur to me while I'm just living my life. And I think that really stayed with me as I developed as a writer. Writers who I've come across who've had a certain amount of audacity in their work to say something, to tell difficult truths, and often to do so with humour. So writers like Shirley Jackson, Ottessa Moshfegh, I love Dorothy Parker, and Daphne du Maurier as well. I read French Exit by Patrick DeWitt, which I think a film's recently come out. I loved that. I read Miranda July's novel, The First Bad Man, and I love that too, which I didn't expect to. Those are a couple of standouts for me. Well, at the moment I have a very small baby, so a lot of feeding is in my near future. But I'm still working on stories. I have a few that I'm in the process of writing. A new one is going to be coming out soon, one that postdates the collection. So yeah, hopefully that will be out in the next couple of months. Thank you so much for having me.